right. Welcome to people who are joining. Hello, hello. I love it. The flood of people joining right on time. Amazing. You put the word cocktails in the presentation, everyone's like, virtual event, I'm in. Let's go. Going to give a couple more moments for everybody to join. But welcome everyone. Right. We can just do little chit chat here with our group while everyone's getting joined. I'm really excited about this event personally. We've done it once before, but we didn't do it with cocktails. And so I can only imagine it's going to be better this time, or snacks for that matter. So those of you who opted to get snacks or are doing something at home, it'll be an extra fun event. We want to keep it very interactive so that everyone can ask lots of questions and really enjoy today. As you're joining, one thing I would like to point out, and I'll point this out again as more people show up, is you'll see there on the screen share that Jason has put up that you can actually load this slides.app.goo.gl kind of link. And that'll allow you to ask questions during the presentation, which is super cool. And we'll see them on our screens, and then we can answer them, and we'll know what slide you asked the question on. It's pretty slick. Jason actually discovered this feature of Google Slides, and I'm excited to use it. All right. I think we can be ready to rock now, Jason. We're a minute or so past the hour, so I think other people can join us and catch up.
Sounds good.
So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So welcome everyone to How Do I Lower My AWS Bill? It's a virtual cocktail hour on the subject of cost optimization on AWS. And we're thrilled to have you all here. Again, a quick reminder across the top there for those of you who are just joining. If you do feel like you'd like to ask questions during the webinar, you can go ahead and go to slides.app.goo.gl, that link across the top. And that will give you a cool little interface where you can go and start asking questions. So with that, I would like to go ahead and introduce this entire crew as I've been babbling and you don't even know who I am yet. So my name is Jonathan LaCour. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Mission. And I am joined today by Jason Gay, who is a Senior Cloud Analyst at Mission. Say hi, Jason.
Hey guys, how are you? Nice to meet y'all.
I'm also joined by John Hashem, who's an SA at CloudHealth.
Hi, everyone.
All right, and we also have Mariah from CloudHealth.
Hey, everybody.
All right, so it's a great little group here. And at this point, we'd actually like to get to know y'all a little bit better. So we're going to launch a quick poll, and your answer does not get tied back to you. So if you're feeling a little bit you want some privacy, don't worry, it's all anonymous. But we just want to get an understanding of kind of the roles that are involved here and get to know you all a little bit better so we can make sure that we're hitting the right notes for kind of your expectations in your job. So, and we'll watch those results come in. And I'm going to vote myself as well. All right. Let's see those results come up shortly, and I'll share them with the group. All right. So everybody might see this, but we have some CEOs and CTOs in the group, some administrators, engineers, sales and marketing folks, and others, a lot of others, right? So that shows how little we know about the job titles of everybody in the industry. But that's a great mix, and I appreciate that because we're going to get to cover things from a lot of different angles. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Jason. So we have lots to cover today. The first thing is we're going to start with the most important part of the day, which is some of you were able to register in time to get one of the cool cocktail kits that we have to send out. If you weren't lucky enough to be one of those people, don't worry. We're going to do more of these events as the time goes on, and just make sure to jump on it quick and you'll get one. Others of you have chosen to order a really cool snack box that we have if maybe you're not a cocktail type person, which is awesome too. And the rest of you, I would encourage you to get some snacks or drinks at home as well and join us. So actually, I would love to do a kind of, I think we have a poll for this as well, Melissa, who is on with us, about what everyone got and is going to be joining with us. Ooh, look at that. There we go. I'm going to vote too. So there was a barbecue old fashioned, a El Pepino margarita, and an assorted snack bundle, or bring my own snacks or drinks or or whatever, or just maybe yourself. All right. I'm actually very curious about this because it took me about 0 seconds to decide on getting the barbecue bourbon one because I'm a bourbon guy. I'm from the South. It's in my blood, quite literally. Okay, let's go ahead and see the results of that poll. Ooh, the margarita is the top winner, and I get it, right? That's a very popular beverage, and a good 20% of you got the bring my own drink, and a good 7% got the snack bundle. That's fun. Well, very cool. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's go to the cocktail section. So here we just wanted to kind of give everyone an opportunity to crack open their little cocktail kit. I'm prepped and I've got a beautiful ice sphere in my double-walled glass because I take this very seriously, almost as seriously as I do cost optimization. And there are instructions, but you kind of don't have to follow them if you really want. Mine includes a step where you have to actually light a barrel wood chip on fire. And I'm going to save that for another time because I really don't want fire near my computer or my microphone. So, but if you are going to light something on fire, turn on your camera because I want to see that. All right, so here we go. It's going to be... Oh my gosh. You're supposed to use the smoke from the bourbon barrel wood chip. That is just my kind of pretentious drink. Okay. I'm going to add everything just to my personal taste. I see some folks with their cameras off doing their mixing. It's really fun. I even have like my fancy cocktail spoon. This is actually, believe it or not, my grandmother, who passed away about 5 or 6 years ago. It was a very big inspiration for me. I named my daughter after her, and she was very much a bourbon connoisseur. And this is something that she gave me a whole kit right before she passed, and that she had been using for many years, which is pretty cool. That's where I get my bourbon from. Okay. All right, everybody, let me know when you're ready. Turn on your camera and hold up your beverage to show us kind of what you got. I'm almost done myself. I'm going through the bitters. Okay. I like that it comes with a little dropper. It's kind of useful so you don't go nuts. All right, a little stir. All right, cheers, everyone. Jason, I know you have a margarita.
I got my margarita and it's
Nice.
delicious. I've been itching to
Hey,
like
there
get
you
a sip
go.
of this for like the past 20 minutes now.
Lewis, that is a true beverage right there. If it's just water, that's cool too. If it's not, I hope you make it through the call today. All right, so
That's just water this time.
just water this time. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, folks. Well, let's actually get going. Let's go to the next slide, Jason. And who is Mission exactly? I think that might be an important topic of conversation. And we are, in fact, an AWS Premier Consulting Partner. That is the highest level of kind of accreditation and certification from AWS. It means we're one of their top partners. And that also means that we have been vetted and validated and verified by AWS. And not only that, we have a bunch of competencies, and all of this is based upon actual work in publicly referenceable case studies that we have, evidence of our talents and skills with our customers. And you'll see some of the competencies here, which we're very skilled at. So migration is definitely one of them, DevOps, Microsoft workloads. And then you'll see on the designation side, we're actually a managed service provider as well, but sort of not your father's managed service provider, right? We don't manage printers and endpoint desktops and things like that. We're all in on AWS, and we can manage your entire AWS cloud environment.
I thought there was going to be an April Fool's joke there, and you're telling us that that's what we were going to start talking about today.
No, we all know that the true April Fool's joke is going to be, we should all be doing this, I think, just to keep the spirit of the event. Maybe I could pick a nice little background that would match my, I'm going to be at the bar with my good friend, the dude. And it's always good when you're, that's from Big Lebowski, if y'all don't know. Okay. And, ooh, that's good. The other thing I want to point out is AWS doesn't have currently a competency or designation for cost optimization, but it is one of the biggest parts of our business and a thing that we're actually highly skilled at. Jason, who introduced himself earlier, is one of our top experts in the business on cost opt, and he will be talking a little bit more about that later. So let's go to the next slide. So about Mission more broadly, in terms of what we do, we kind of aim to be a one-stop shop partner for AWS. So we're not limited to just doing pure consulting projects, although that is something we do. We like to tell people that we can meet you at any place in your journey. So if you have not yet migrated to AWS, we can advise you. We can do a readiness assessment for you and give you kind of a roadmap to get where you want to go. And we can also do POCs to kind of determine if your workloads are a good fit for AWS. Spoiler alert, they almost always are. And in addition, we can do migrations themselves. So we have the migration competency. We are supported by the AWS Migration Acceleration Program, which is a fantastic program that allows you to make the migration to AWS with a great partner like Mission and have a lot of that cost offset, because AWS would love to have you in their cloud. In terms of management, we can do quite a lot of management, which I referred to earlier, around your kind of environment, implementing backups and runbooks and monitoring. And we can have 24/7 support. We have a whole fleet of engineers all over the world who are certified with AWS. And we also have a data analytics and machine learning practice. So we do quite a lot of work in that category as well. We also do continuous consultation around kind of the DevOps model. So you can have an expert be kind of your trusted advisor from our team, and they can iterate with you against a roadmap that they create to make sure that you're continuously improving. So I know that was all a mouthful, but I wanted to make sure you knew who we are. And let's go ahead and start talking cost optimization. So it's quite a broad topic, right? And there's many things that are important to understand. And critically, it's that cost optimization is not a one-time event, right? It is this journey. So let's dive into that together and start with the illustration of a typical spend pattern for organizations who adopt AWS. So let's go to the next slide. We call this the continuous climb. And so this is actually a real redacted customer name spend pattern before a customer engaged with us, looking at their spend over a period of time. And if you actually see here, their costs are on the rise. And sometime in the middle of the year, they say, oh no, our costs are rising. And they'll make a huge reactive one-time purchase of reserved instances. And they'll drive their ongoing costs, their kind of carrying costs down a bit. And then the cost continues to rise because there's a lot more to consider than just reserved instances. And you need to be doing this on kind of a more routine and regular basis. So while there is a lot of benefit to kind of migrating to the cloud because of the kind of on-demand, fully self-service, consumption-based model, if you're not careful and you don't track and trace kind of your business and your usage, you can get into trouble, right? So unless you have these programmatic cost management techniques encompassing people, process, and tools, which we're going to touch on all three of those things today, you can have some unchecked growth. So that is definitely worth taking a drink. If your spend pattern looks like that, cheers. We can help you on that. That is a really outstanding cocktail for one that's delivered in the mail or one that you get at a bar. All right, so let's go to the next slide, Jason, and we'll talk a little bit about how we help this customer. So you'll notice here that we wanted to get to a steady state for them. This is a real Mission customer. They engaged with us to drive this kind of programmatic cost optimization in a continuous fashion. And you can see that the output is a more steady state, predictable month-to-month charge. Now, it's not because they're not growing. It's because they're consistently doing the right things from an optimization perspective, getting covered with savings plans and RIs, right-sizing, and doing all sorts of optimization techniques, which we'll talk about later. And we also leverage continuous monitoring with CloudHealth. So that's our partner who is here today, and it is truly the best kind of platform on the market for kind of cloud management and really getting deep insights into your spend and recommendations. So one opportunity that you can kind of see here is to make, reviewing constant opportunities to right size and make smaller strategic RI purchases that can be highly impactful. And let's go ahead and go to the next slide to kind of talk a little bit about design principles. So when you look at the best practices and techniques that we are going to share through today's presentation, we really want you to keep these design principles in mind. So there are 8 principles. So the first is that you really need to embrace the consumption model of the cloud. This can be a dangerous thing if you leave your instances running unchecked, or if you leave resources, always running. But you have the ability to fully programmatically spin resources up and down and only pay for what you use. So if you can take advantage of this model to align with your actual usage, rather than leaving idle resources out running 24/7, you can actually save.
This is
So
what I tend to refer to that as my dad policy. Walk into a room, why are the lights on in here? Right. It's the same concept. Who's anybody in here?
Yeah.
Right. It's always the same thing in my house. I have 3 boys. They don't care. I'm like, you paying my electric bill? Same concept with cloud computing.
Very, very well put, Jason. And Mission and CloudHealth can kind of be your motion sensor, right?
Yep.
When you walk in the room, you're using it. When you walk out, lights go off, right? So the second really important thing, and I actually think this is probably the most important thing, because you don't know what to do unless you're measuring everything, right? Measure overall efficiency and aggressively tag your resources, because you need to get a handle on what resources are running in the environment, why they're running. So it's not just tagging things as, web instances or web front ends and databases. You can also tag them around specific workloads, applications, cost centers, all sorts of things like that. And once you have that, we can allocate costs on that for you, and it'll help you make good strategic decisions. I'll give you an example. One of our customers is in the entertainment industry, and they had a site that they were going to put up to advertise a particular film, and it was sort of think of it as sort of a viral marketing kind of technique. And so they spun this site up. It got hammered for 2 months, and then they spun it down after kind of the movie had been released and was completed. And afterwards, they were able to, because of their measuring and tagging, they could actually directly compare the cost of having that site running to the benefit of what it did and how it influenced the overall revenue of the film. So it's very cool. Visibility plays a huge role, so that's really important. So we talked about tagging already. In addition, governance is really important, right? Guardrails. If you don't have those guardrails in place, on-demand self-service nature of the cloud will lead to wild, unchecked growth. I could tell you one thing. My background is engineering and development, and there is nothing cooler than being able to just spin up an instance and create a Lambda function and create an RDS instance. It's very exciting until you get your first bill. If you treat it like standard hosting, right? It's not what it is. It's the cloud. And finally, you can see there's significant opportunities here on the right side of the screen that arise when you really invest, right? When you invest in evolving your workloads. And that includes re-architecting, so moving towards a microservices model, which can help you with your costs, and you can scale each part of your workload independently rather than scaling as a monolith, which can have a higher cost. You can re-architect to move away from heavy licensing burden. So if you have a lot of Microsoft-backed databases, maybe you should consider something else. Because if you do that, you can significantly reduce your licensing burden. Move from Windows to Linux. And then you can reduce your kind of operational costs ongoing with managed services. And I'm not talking specifically about managed services that Mission provides, although that also applies. But AWS has services like RDS, right? So instead of having, a team of people monitoring, managing, and, DBAs, keeping your database up and running, you leave that to AWS and you focus on creating business value, right? And then it's a journey, optimize over time. So let's go to the next slide and really dig in deeper on that journey aspect of things. So we've talked about the design principles for cost optimization. And Jason, keep me honest here. If anybody asks a question, I'm not paying close enough attention. Just smack me upside the head.
I will be happy to do that.
Lean
virtually,
into
of course.
Full dad mode, right? So we've outlined the design principles, as I mentioned. And so they all come together as sort of a continuous journey, a continuous cost optimization lifecycle. And that means you can see kind of 4 general phases here in the lifecycle. So you've got analysis, cost optimization, cloud governance, and usage and cost monitoring. And you'll also see there are 28 distinct activities here across these 4 phases that make up kind of a complete cost optimization practice. So you have tracking cost and usage, right sizing, private pricing, which is a huge topic for us with our customers, cost allocation, lights out policies like From now on, I'm calling those dad mode policies. Thanks, Jason. That's awesome. And every customer and environment is a little bit different, and their journey is a little bit different. But you do, again, have to treat it as this regular process of refinement improvement. And so, for example, if you're in a phase of analysis and then cost optimization, think about how you can apply governance policies as sort of a next step, right? As an output. And if you stop at any one phase, you're not going to get the full benefit. You've got to continuously move through the cycle. The first time you go through the cycle, it's the most difficult. But then it becomes sort of like doing push-ups, right? You're getting better and better at it, and you can kind of keep that going. So I'm going to pause just for a second. And if you have your video on, raise your hand if you find this slightly overwhelming. Okay, well, a couple of you do. I hear you. There's a lot to consider, but the good news is we're now going to dive into tools and services and other systems that can help you get there faster. So you do not have to do it on your own. There's automation. There are people who can help. So let's go to the next slide. And this is where we talk about how you can operationalize cost optimization. So as I mentioned earlier, people, process, tools. Let's first talk about a great tool, right? And that's CloudHealth. And I mentioned, we have some lovely folks here from CloudHealth who can speak to kind of some of these capabilities. We are solely partnered with CloudHealth for cost optimization services. And at a high level, it connects to your AWS accounts, and it provides management, recommendations, and optimization capabilities. You get really in-depth reporting and alerting, and all sorts of wonderful recommendations. Once it's deployed and configured, it can provide this sort of continuous visibility, so you can get kind of a handle on things. So this is what we use. This is what Jason uses on a day-to-day basis to help our customers drive value and drive cost savings in the cloud. So I'd actually love if John or Mariah or anyone else has anything to add before I hand off to Jason to give a demo. Is there anything else we should mention about how great CloudHealth is?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think a couple points to add. Just as Jonathan mentions, a couple of areas that customers tend to struggle with is their, as they start to onboard cloud spend, visibility becomes really important. So taking that huge, complicated bill, which is thousands or sometimes millions of lines, and breaking it down by cost center line of business, and optimization obviously takes a key part of that, but really helping with taking those costs and charging them back to the appropriate business units, whether it's traditional infrastructure, more IaaS type stuff, or microservices. So when you switch to microservices as part of that optimization curve, how do you take those new constructs and charge them back? Those things become complicated, but an area that CloudHealth can help with. So just wanted to add that there.
Fantastic. That's great. So you've heard enough of me babbling. I can get pretty grating after a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Jason, and I'll shut up for a while.
All right. So we are going to go through a brief demo of CloudHealth. Has anybody here, quick show of hands, actually ever worked with CloudHealth or seen this tool in their past before? Okay, a couple of nods, a couple of yeses. Excellent. All right. For those who haven't, we're going to show you a couple of features of the platform, kind of what it does. I'm going to share through here. So we'll start taking a look at this main dashboard. When you first log into the CloudHealth platform, you're going to see a very high level piece of information. It's going to show you your current cost. It's the first of the month, so our costs so far haven't been processed yet for today. So that's why they're zero. We can see what our costs were last month. We can see where our projections are for the current month. Beauty of this graph, which is super easy to use in comparison to Cost Explorer. I always consider this to be like Cost Explorer on performance enhancing drugs. So it's baseball season starts today. I have baseball in my mind. Someone's got an asterisk somewhere, but anyhow, the beauty of this graph is that you can hover over anything on here and it's going to show you what your spend was in that specific category. So we can see clearly last month in March, EC2 compute costs accrued about $1.6 million worth of spend. But the hard thing about this graph right here to look at is that takes up so much space on it that it's hard to view and kind of see where the rest of these things are. CloudHealth makes this super, super easy. You can simply turn things off by clicking on them in the key, turn things off and kind of get a feel for what is kind of driven up at the top level of this. It also lets you focus in on very specific services. So if we wanted to look at, let's just arbitrarily pick NAT gateway transfer costs here, I can zoom in on that one specific service and get a trend really quickly of how this service has performed for us in terms of spend over the last 13 months. All right, our main dashboard shows a bunch of other things on here as well. It's going to show usage of EC2 instances. This is more of a quantity graph. So sometimes you got to pay attention to what you're looking at. Don't get confused. This is not costs. This is showing you a number of upfront resources running on a daily basis. So this is all your partial upfronts. We got 5,000 partial upfront instances running today or yesterday. We've got a bunch, 3,700 no upfronts, a bunch of on-demand resources, and then there's probably some all upfronts up here as well. And the spot instances are itty bitty way at the top of the resource, top of the graph. You've got information in here about RDS costs broken out by account. So you can see your spending for that specific services, the specific services here. And then down at the bottom of the graph, you can see what you've got in place for S3 consumption by storage tier. So for example, about a month ago, we saw about 12.1 petabytes. And we are all the way up to 14.5 petabytes as of the end of the month. That's all in S3 standard. Here's what you've got in Glacier, et cetera. So this can help us really drill into anything. There was a question that came in about the projected spend for the month. That projected spend is actually relatively close. I was really surprised at this when I first started using CloudHealth about 5 or 6 years ago. I was like, that can't possibly predict it. It works great. It will update on a daily basis. It's typically based, I believe it's on a rolling 30-day average spend. So it's kind of looking at what happens day after day. As it sees new resources come up and on up, and your costs go up, it's going to obviously make your projections look a little higher. If it sees costs come down on a specific day, it's going to bring those projections down. So it's updated based on what data it has. So garbage in, garbage out, obviously.
Yes, and one important thing to note is if you do have a workload where it tends to like spike extremely at very specific times of year, there's only so much that can be projected, right?
Exactly.
It does a pretty good job, though, I would say. And another question, Jason, that did come in through the Google form is about how CloudHealth differs from native tools. And I think this is actually one of the great examples of how it differs from the native AWS tools.
Yeah, so I think the biggest piece that how this differs from the native AWS tools, just to give a quick bit of insight into that, Cost Explorer is awesome. It's very powerful, but it's like one big report. And unless you know exactly what you're looking for and how to configure all those reports, it's really difficult to find stuff. So while it's super powerful, it's not user friendly. CloudHealth's going to have about 95% of what you need on a daily basis. And then we can build some custom reports into the platform as well to get you the rest of it. But 95% of what you're going to need on an everyday basis is already pre-baked into the platform. They've done a great job understanding the market, understanding what customers need, what most businesses want, and they help you get that information really quickly. I'm going to jump through to our pulse reports, specifically the health check report. This is one of my favorites to poke around in. This gives you a very high level view of what's going on in the account. It tells you some opportunities for optimization. It's telling me right now we have 90 EBS volumes that are unattached, costing us $1,100 a month in waste. Dad, turn the lights off. So, you can drill into this report. It'll give you that listing of all the different volumes. And it's also giving you a listing down below of any particular EC2 instance that it's seeing as potentially over provisioned. And it's broken it out for us here by instance type. So in this case, it's telling us is about $27,000 worth. You can go and drill into any of these. And I'm going to show you this stuff in a couple of minutes and what these right sizing recommendations will look like and where it comes from.
And one thing to add here too, as part of the health check, is you'll notice on the top, there's a scoring policy. So it's this instance policy that gives you an opportunity to really customize the health check based on workloads. So for example, if you want to do a health check that's right size based on project A, this can actually be customized to that, along with another visibility component, which is organizations, which we can maybe touch on a bit, which is we're going to take all of your complicated account structures and just show you a health check for maybe 10 out of 100 accounts. So you're not getting a lot of noise. You can really focus on the problem and know where to start.
True. Someone did pose a question in here about how CloudHealth collects cloud data. So it does it in two different ways. First of all, we have a payer account that we set up for all of our customers. CloudHealth is going to analyze that cost and usage report that is configured in that account, and it's going to pull that billing data in on a daily basis. But it's also grabbing metadata about resources. So it's looking for things like security groups and performance metrics that are pulled in from CloudWatch and what instance types are running and names and all this other fun stuff. All of that stuff is grabbed by an IAM role, cross account access. It's all secure. At Mission, we give read-only access to our customers' account to our accounts by default. CloudHealth does not. We don't give it the permission to do anything else. It has the capability of doing other stuff. So if you want to create things like lights out policies, you can do that, but we would have to update permissions on that sort of thing. Moving right along in here, a couple other reports. This is our cost history report. This is the same report you saw on the main dashboard a couple minutes ago, but now we are actually in the details of the report. And what I love about this view is I can filter this out really quickly. So first of all, we're categorized by various different service items right now from AWS. We can go and look at where are our accounts, where are our costs by account. So cost by account, it's going to update real quickly here. It's going to make a fool of me. Maybe it won't. I'll move on to the next report and see what we can find here. You can do these categorizations all over the place as well. So categorization here on an EC2 instance report or cost history report here. This is showing us costs by various different EC2 instances. I've got it categorized by our reservations right now. So you can see your on-demand costs have come down as no upfront reserved instances or key savings plans have been purchased. You can then take a look at that and compare that against an EC2 instance usage report, which I've got here, which is showing you usage is relatively flat. I mean, there's about 9,000 instances per day running here. But you can see the same thing is showing that these costs have come down with the addition of these additional savings plans and reserved instances.
Yeah, something out here too is for a lot of those type of reports that you're looking at, those are, CloudHealth makes recommendations. This is data to back those decisions. So when you give someone a recommendation and they're like, I don't know about that, you go, let me show you this right here. So just one.
Exactly that, John. One of the things that I always say, sometimes the recommendations are going to come in and you're going to be like, really, do I want to do that? And you start looking at it and say, oh, you dig into the details and you're like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like these recommendations that come up are pretty darn good. I'm going to drill into the next report. So I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that we were going to look at right sizing. So this is an instance right sizing report, EC2 right sizing report. And it's going to show us, I'm going to look at the fourth line down here. So this is showing us this resource right here. Sorry for making a mess of my screen, but effectively here, we're looking at CPU metrics. We're looking at memory and disk and max CPU numbers and all that fun stuff. We have a C4 4x large instance. CloudHealth believes we can migrate this down to an R5 extra large and save $358 a month. And it gets there by looking at various different metrics. So the first thing you're going to ask is, well, it can't see the memory. Well, it's because memory is an operating system specific metric. And unless you tell CloudHealth to collect it, and unless you're reporting it from your instances into CloudWatch, it's not going to pick it up. There are integrations with various monitoring tools. So things like Datadog and New Relic and Wavefront, those will all integrate with CloudHealth via an API. There are agents you can install from CloudHealth to collect that data if you want it. You can get stuff through just native, CloudWatch enhanced performance monitoring metrics, which tend to generate extra cost in AWS. And I usually advise against turning that on unless you absolutely need it for something like an auto scaling group. But you can drill into the CPU metrics for this resource, and my browser is not playing happily with me today. So I apologize for not being able to pull these numbers up. But bottom line is it's going to show you a trend over a period of time. And it can be a month, it can be 2 months, you can be daily numbers and get pretty granular with it. And you can actually see what CPU performance is doing. So in this case, this C4 4x large down to an R5 extra large is based upon the fact that our maximum CPU over the last month was never over 11, almost 12% here. So that to me is a great example of why we would want to make this change and having that metric information to do it. Now, the other thing that I was saying before, some of the recommendations will come up and say, terminate the instance, right? You might look at this and say, well, I don't necessarily want to terminate it. Well, the reason you're getting that is you're seeing an average CPU score of nothing. Your maximum CPU over the course of the month was at like 2% at the most. Network in and out, which is not shown on this graph right here. We can add columns to this if we wanted to. Is probably 0 as well, or near 0. And CloudHealth is looking at it and saying, this guy's idle. Like, why are we running this? All right, next report, I got signed out, and that's why this happened. So I'll show you the very high level.
We got to the bottom of it. You timed
Figured
out.
out why I couldn't get that report. So I got signed out. I'm not going to sign back into it, but I was idle. I had this up and open for too long on my screen. So there are policies in here that will show you resources that are, users that have old policies in here, old passwords or old credentials. There are things that are going to show you that you've got 89 VPCs without flow logs turned on. This one is killer for me. There's 13 AWS accounts with a root user that doesn't have multi-factor authentication turned on for their accounts. That's like asking for a problem. This is kind of the high level of CloudHealth and what it can and can't do. I wanted to just highlight one other thing in here that we can talk about. Savings plans. There is a great, and this we didn't get to it because it wasn't available today, but there's a great engine for savings plan recommendations in here. So one of my biggest pet peeves about Cost Explorer is that when they make a recommendation for savings plans, it's almost always at like 97, 98% coverage. Nobody in their right mind should be buying full 100, like up that high of amount of coverage. You want to leave yourself some elasticity so that if you need to scale your environment down, you can. That will give you the ability to, if there's an economic downturn and some global pandemic happens to hit and you need to spin some resources down or downsize them, you can do that. If you're fully covered, you're kind of up a creek without a paddle, and that's never a fun place to be. All right. So in general, you want to rein in your costs, and you want to dig deeper and get better insight into your tools. This is the way to do it. This tool is awesome. One of the things I will just kind of advise everybody here is Mission will teach you how to use CloudHealth, and we will be happy to make you an expert in that product if you want to be, but under no circumstances do we ever expect our customers to become experts. That's really our job, and our job is to help you to get those costs under control. All right. Next slide. So we're going to talk about a success story from one of our customers here. We're going to talk about a company that we work with called Venuetize. Venuetize happened to be hit really hard by our lovely pandemic last spring. They work with large event venues, do a lot of advertising in venue, on like big advertising boards and stuff like that. And obviously, with all these big venues being closed, they were struggling to keep the doors open right now, keep the lights on. We were able to go through CloudHealth with them, build them a whole bunch of reporting, analyze what their spend was, and find them ways to drop their spending. So in general, we found about $7,000 a month just by making some very simple changes to the environment. I'm actually going to go back a slide for a second. Here we go. So little things you can see here. There's an RDS compute line up here, this dark blue line at the top of the screen. Those are RDS compute costs for them. We help them to do some right sizing with RDS. We help them to find RDS volume sizes. So one of the things that they saw was their usage dropped off at the beginning of the pandemic was that they didn't really need all these high performance disks spinning in the back end of these RDS instances. Bringing that down, help them bringing that down to standard general purpose volumes. Certainly a really easy way to, and low impact to the organization, to help them bring those costs back under control. We're able to make an RI purchase doing some right sizing. So another $3,000 a month came off their bill right around here. So this is a daily spend. You can kind of see how that comes down right here. We started looking at compute savings plans, right? So this customer had nothing at that point in time. They were all on demand. They wanted to know how can they drop those costs even further. So we got them from a high point of around $18,000 a month in EC2 spending down to a low of around $8,500. That low came in and then they were like, oh, well, we got down that low. We can add some more resources back into the environment and actually not be, running bare bones. We can actually continue to work. So another $3,000 or so saved right there. So long story short, we made these plans. There was nothing in the account. You can kind of see exactly what that spend looked like and where those changes were. This blue bar on this graph here is showing you what the spend would have been prior to RIs and savings plans being purchased. And then the red bar shows you what those costs came back down to.
And one cool thing to add is for compute savings plans, a lot of customers struggle with where savings plans actually, like, who received the benefit based on usage. So pretty cool thing is CloudHealth actually shows you where the waste is, how much you saved, and who actually used it. So for chargeback, you can actually bill appropriately.
Yep. So this is what their spend looked like over a 4-month period. We brought their costs down from about $50,000 a month down to $34,000 a month. So it's about $16K a month in savings. Annually, that was $192,000 a year. That let this customer keep the lights on. It let them not have to let go of people. It was a huge win for them and for us. Any questions so far before I go on to the next one? All right. So the next case study, we're going to talk about a customer that we have called MH Next. So MH Next, I know this one a little bit better because this is one of my customers that I get to work with regularly. So MH Next runs an online dating app. And again, beginning of the pandemic, they saw their usage skyrocket. But they were seeing, their usage in general with the amount of people coming into their site close to doubled at the beginning of this pandemic. They saw people not obviously able to go out. It's like, all right, well, we'll use the online chat rooms that we can do to meet new people. This is cool. We have recurring cadence with this customer. We meet with them every other week, talk with them about what they're doing. This customer is incredibly agile. They will make changes on a dime to make cost optimization a priority for them. So some of the stuff we've done, we've looked at spot instances with them. As existing RIs expired, their application was architected in such a way that spot instances made a lot of sense. We were able to apply rules to their auto-scaling groups to take advantage of their excess capacity, of AWS's excess capacity, and utilize those spot instances. And we got their EC2 spending alone down from $14,000 a month down to about $6,000 a month with that usage. This is not like a partial month here in August. This is actually their actual spend. So a lot of that happens with, building a base auto scaling group of a couple of, instances that are always going to be on. And then any scaling that they did at all, any upward scaling was all done using spot instances. Other ways they were working to see their spend. They saw quite a bit of extra data transfer coming through their environment at the beginning of the pandemic. Once that leveled off, we were still able to drop their pricing here. So Mission, as an AWS partner and having hundreds of customers on our resale program, Cloud Foundation, what we call it, we have great buying power with AWS, and we can negotiate private pricing agreements with our customers. In this case, looking at what they were able to commit to and what this customer was able to see, they knew how much they were going to use in terms of CloudFront data transfer. We were able to save them about $5,000 a month, a little bit more than that, in data transfer costs alone. So you can see on the left here, this graph is kind of showing you what their data transfer usage was. It kind of plateaus right around here, but yet their pricing came way, way down as we got new private pricing agreements in front of them. So I think, Jonathan, you alluded to that at the beginning of the presentation and how we can do that for many customers. Absolutely. CloudFront's probably one of the most popular ways for most popular types of private pricing agreements we can put in place. There are others for other services. There are things like S3 private pricing. It really all depends on commitments that you're comfortable making to AWS and the term of those commitments. So last thing we were looking at, just kind of a high level view of it. Combined right sizing, we combined spot instance usage, we combined CloudFront PPAs. We saw $14,000 a month in savings, which resulted in an annual savings of $168,000. This has continued with this customer over the last year. We've gone through things with them like, all right, they've got all these reserved instances that they had purchased several years ago. As they've expired, let them expire, modernize instance types. So kind of going back to that cycle, that ever ongoing cycle that Jonathan was alluding to earlier, cost optimization is not something you just set it and forget it. You turn it on, you do something, you look at it again next month, next week, tomorrow. And you come back and you're constantly tweaking things and making changes. So high level here, you can see kind of a quick summary of this customer, looking for ways to increase elasticity. The spot instances were able to do that. Looking at routine checkups, we were able to make some changes there. I know one of the more recent changes was taking advantage of GP3 storage, which was released by AWS a few months ago. That has also started to bring some of their storage costs down, and so on and so forth.
Right. Thanks, Jason. That was
Sure.
fantastic overview. And John as well, really good details and insights on not only how great CloudHealth is, but some sort of best practices and some real results, right, to drive in actual customers, which is always the most important thing, right? It's always nice to see, shiny, fancy graphs and charts and things like that. But if it doesn't amount to any savings, then, what use is it? So we've just had a great deal of success. And one of these days, Jason, I want to get together and kind of figure out exactly how much money we've saved customers over the last 5 years, right? Like, I think that would be a really great metric to look at. But before that, I do want to talk a little bit about how Mission can help, right? And to be very clear up front, my interest is primarily to ensure that all of my customers and all of you get into a good spot with this, right? And there is a very good chance you may have some in-house resources to help with this, and there's a chance that you might not, right? Kind of across the board. But I want to make you aware of some things that are available to you as options from Mission. So the first is something we call Mission Cloud Foundation. It's a very intentionally named service because it really is a great place for you to start and to build on top. And the really interesting part about it as well is that it costs $0 for you to be a part of this program. So effectively, it is a managed service from Mission that allows you to bring kind of your cloud spend into that kind of sharp focus, right? As part of this, we add CloudHealth to your environment. We do that at no cost. If you do want to get CloudHealth outside of Mission, you can go to CloudHealth, and I would highly recommend it. And you can pay them for it, or you can get it for free at Mission. Either way, as long as you get it, I'm happy. And you also get access to a very smart cloud analyst like Jason, but potentially not as good looking, right, Jason?
Of course not.
Right.
Of course not.
And that is all part of kind of the overall program. So you get regular cadence calls with someone like Jason. We'll configure CloudHealth for you. We'll give you Mission's default reports to drive kind of cost management, best practices, and granular details. And those reports are based upon experience with hundreds of customers, right? But we can also work with you to kind of build out more customized things. It's completely included as part of the program to get that CloudHealth access and to get access to Jason or someone like him. And we actually rolled this service out a couple of years ago now, a year and a half. And it's been, last year it was our most popular service, right? And part of that is because obviously the pandemic has impacted a lot of people's businesses and they're looking for ways to save. But every one of those customers has stuck with it and really felt like, wow, this is an incredible thing to have access to. So you get simplified invoicing. I don't know if any of you have ever looked at an AWS invoice, but it's like an eye chart. You get like every little detail, and it's not particularly useful unless you are like a walking abacus, right? If you really want to understand how everything breaks down. So what we can do is we can simplify your invoicing, send you one that comes out of CloudHealth that is much more crystal clear on your costs, right? And you get those consultations with Jason or someone like him. And you also get kind of assistance with savings plans and RIs. So we'll tell you, this is what you should do. Here's your cost for an all upfront versus a partial upfront versus a no upfront. Here's what we recommend, savings plans versus RIs or both. And we'll give you lots of data to make those decisions strategically. And you'll also get the kind of tagging and continuous attribution features that we talked about before, all for free, all part of the program. It's a pretty great place to get started and very foundational for you. So let's go to the next slide. The next thing to talk about is something we actually rolled out in March last year in response to the pandemic. And we decided we wanted to keep it going because it has been a huge help to our customers. And while it does kind of reduce our overall benefit, it has been such a popular thing and it really helps businesses succeed. We like to build trust with folks, and this is a great way to do it. So we call it the Mission Instant Discount Program, or IDP. And if you're looking to cut your costs like right now and a starting point, we've launched this program where you can join up, and it's basically based upon that Cloud Foundation program. And again, zero cost. And we can give you up to 5% off of your AWS bill immediately for 12 months. Okay, no commitments, no long-term anything. For most customers, a lot more savings are available, right, and possible. But this is sort of a guaranteed win with no effort, right? You just get that right away. And there's opportunities to work with us to drive more savings over time, which, based upon the case studies earlier, you can see that we're pretty good at. So a couple of weeks ago, we actually onboarded, I guess this is more than that now, a couple of months ago, we onboarded a customer into Cloud Foundation at IDP, and we were able to drive down their cost by 15% within weeks, right? Which is pretty exciting. So you get all the benefits of Cloud Foundation, and you get guaranteed predictable savings with the IDP program with no commitment. So we do have some survey stuff at the end of the presentation today, and you can kind of see if you qualify for the program. Many customers qualify for 5%, others for less, but almost everyone qualifies in some way.
So we got a question in here. How does Mission make money, Jonathan?
That's a great question. So this is great for transparency. So Mission is an AWS reseller. And what that means, that's one of the things we are, right? That means that we are partnered with AWS, and we are enabled to be your reseller. And if you, instead of having a direct billing relationship with AWS, you transition that to us. The way that works is we create master payer accounts, and you link your member accounts that actually have all the usage up to our payer accounts. And then your billing relationships translates to Mission. So we invoice you with much better, nicer, prettier, easier to read and understand invoices out of CloudHealth, and you pay us, right? And then we pay Amazon on the back end. Now, for that, AWS gives us some margin on that spend. And we use that to deliver all of this to you. So the 5% savings, we give that back to you. The cost for CloudHealth, we do pay for it because it's so awesome and worth it, but we give that back to you, right? And so it's driven based upon that reselling kind of relationship, at least for these services. There are other services that we provide where we actually, do charge for them, right? So things like our managed DevOps program, our Cloud One program with kind of New Relic management and 24/7 management of your environment, and other services. But for all of these cost-conscious programs, it's really focused on that, right? It's a great question. So let's go to the next slide. So remember, we talked about making small strategic reserved instance purchases over time and compute savings plan purchases over time. Mission has rolled out a service called Reserved Instance Optimization. We call it RIO because it's funner to say. And it's a really great service. So reserved instances and savings plans are great, and they're purely financial instruments, right? They have no impact on your actual infrastructure. You purchase them and you place them into your account, and your billing changes. And so you're effectively changing or trading a commitment and potentially some upfront costs to get deep discounts. And the challenge there is that it's really, really hard to know which RIs should I buy, which type. They come in different shapes, sizes, flavors, commitment terms, upfront cost, and risk, right? And some of you probably have people on your house who are kind of extremely skilled at doing this, which is great. But if you don't have that, or you don't want to take the financial risk, we created this program. And it's effectively like outsourced reservation management. And we actually procure and manage the reservations on your behalf. It is an easy button. You push it, and we go in, you attach to our environment. This is all driven by Cloud Foundation again. And we will go ahead and buy the reservations on your behalf in order to drive the maximum savings. So our typical customer gets over 90% optimization and pretty huge amount of savings. So it's an amazing program, and we take on the financial risk for you. Most customers.
I was going to give you an example with that.
Yeah,
we have a customer we're working with right now. They spend about $105,000 a month. They came on board with us last year. We're saving maybe $3,000 or $4,000 a month in RI use with the use of reserved instances on their own.
Right.
They came under our plan, and I would say within about 2 months, we got them fully optimized and had driven that savings up to about $18,000 a month. That's all through this
pretty
program. It's all
amazing.
the automation that makes it beautiful.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll note is a lot of it comes down to risk and commitment and cost, right? So most customers that we encounter are doing 1 year commitments, right? And usually no upfront. And why are they doing that? Well, they want to preserve their cash and they want to reduce their risk, but you're getting a significantly lower percentage of savings. Now, what we can do, because we have such scale, is that we on the back end are able to move our eyes around and sell them kind of through an internal marketplace to other customers, but we do it all automatically on the back end. So we can purchase 3-year RIs for you and put up the upfront capital to make it happen. And then shift, if your workload changes and maybe that RI is not useful to you anymore, or a set of them, we can actually kind of exchange them around to continue to for you to have this really, really high level of optimization with like no real cost, or risk constraints for you. And we use the best tool for the job. So this is not just RIs, it's also savings plans, right? So, we just didn't want to rename it to Risco. Risco. So yeah, that is RI management on autopilot, which is the Rio program. Okay, so you'll recall that as part of that journey we talked about before, the life cycle, there was a whole category around continuous improvement and re-architecture and actually working on your workload, right? So the RIs and IDP and all of this, they're really purely financial programs. If you want to maximize your savings completely, you might need to re-architect in some spots to where it makes sense. So if you think about an RI, a 1-year standard RI on average will save you about 30% over on demand. But if you put in a lights out policy, for instances, that can be shut down for 8 hours and nights at weekends, you can cut that cost by half, right? So you can get it to 50%. And there's other techniques here, breaking the monolithic workloads into independently scalable microservices. That does require work and effort. But the cool thing about that is, again, you can scale up only the parts you need rather than scaling a monolith where you're paying for the whole thing scaling up, even though particular parts of that monolith are not needing those resources, right? And moving to fully managed services like RDS, DocumentDB, Elasticache, that will drive savings. And then licensing, which we talked about earlier. We can help you move over to SQL Server, or you can do that yourself, or move away from SQL Server, I should say, or Oracle, and you can use something like Aurora, which can make a massive impact. So a lot of these things will come out of Cloud Foundation in terms of the insights we'll tell you. We'll say, hey, look, if you do these things, then you're going to have more savings. And you may have the internal resources, you may not, to execute. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we're a full service partner. We can help you execute on all of these things. So the key thing for us is making sure that you get that insight, you get the recommendations. If you execute on them, great. If you don't have the bandwidth, we're happy to help. So let's go down to the next slide, and we can talk about that in a little bit more detail. This will kind of wrap things up. So you're all looking for ways to cut cost, and you might not know where to get started. And if you feel that way, here's kind of a path that can take you through the whole journey. So first, don't try to tackle everything at once. Use tools like AWS Trusted Advisor, sign up for CloudHealth and target low-hanging fruit for quick savings. And that can be finding unused resources like zombie instances or unused EBS volumes. And then you should, explore other financial tools like RIs and savings plans. And those will allow you to reduce costs further where it makes sense. Again, we don't recommend doing one-time big reactive purchases. We recommend that you become strategic. Focus on well-known steady-state workloads that are running on newer AWS instance types. If you have legacy instance types, which you plan to change later, then focus on compute savings plans or look at services like Rio. And lastly, measure your performance of the changes. You don't want to fall back into the continuous climb, right? You want to get to that ideal steady-state spend that we touched on earlier. And you can leverage CloudWatch on this and really think about cloud-native tools like CloudHealth with strong policy engines for better governance. And once you have all that governance and visibility in place, you've got to be able to monitor and refine as needed, having conversations that are design related and strategic to your business with your engineering teams. And for example, we actually like to internally build an effort versus savings matrix to kind of help keep us focused. So if we could re-architect something and it's going to save us 2%, it probably isn't worth it. If we can re-architect something and it's going to save us 30%, that's an investment we should consider, right? Now, if you feel like you got it, that's awesome. If you feel like you need help, that's also awesome. So Cloud Foundation, IDP, Rio, and our managed DevOps service and cloud transformation services, we're happy to help. But if I had to give you advice, let's go to the next slide. I would recommend that at a minimum, you at least sign up and see if IDP would work for you. So you can save 5% immediately, up to 20% with your new team of cloud analysts. Just go to missioncloud.com/IDP. And with that, you will be able to see what kind of discount you can qualify for. And one of our awesome folks on the team will reach out and talk you through it. And yeah, and you can also see some phone numbers on there, sales@missioncloud.com, missioncloud.com, a phone number. And also, I'm very easy to reach if you want to reach me. I'm Jonathan@missioncloud.com. Have no problem taking a personal email from you and talking you through it. And we're going to open it up for more Q&A, but I see we have one more in here that I'm going to pitch over to Jason and John. Can we address storage optimization?
Sure. So storage optimization is kind of a broad subject, right? There can be there's a slew of different storage types right now. There's S3, there's EBS, there's EFS, there's, you name it, there's a different service for storage. There's now FSX too, I think. So we're going to look at all that stuff. So one of the things we do as a cloud analyst team, we're going to meet with you on a monthly basis and we're going to analyze it. We're going to look at what are you using the most of? Where's the front domino, right? Let's not try to fix everything all at once, kind of like what Jonathan alluded to a few minutes ago. But if I see that your EBS storage costs are clearly the biggest area of spending, we're going to go drill into that. I found recently there was a customer that I just worked with that had a whole bunch of provisioned IOPS volumes that were hanging around, provisioned for something like 500 IOPS. Well, AWS recently released these GP3 storage volumes, and those volumes are coming with 3,000 IOPS, like for a fraction of the price. So it's like, all right, well, let's go evaluate whether or not that's a good choice. Sometimes it's a great choice, sometimes it's not. But looking at those little things like that, looking at what tiers of storage you're using with S3. S3 is certainly a big one that we see quite frequently. More often than not, we see customers coming in, everything's in S3 standard. All right, well, why are we using one tier of storage? Why not look at alternative tiers of storage and creating lifecycle policies to automate this and move stuff to lower cost tiers of storage that's not actually going to bill you anywhere near the same amount. Those are some of the big things that we focus on.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason, for that. See another question here. Are there long-term commitments for Cloud Foundation or Rio? So the answer is on Cloud Foundation, it's a month-to-month thing, right? You can join. If you don't like it, you can leave, right? So it's very, 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 very low risk. On Rio, we are taking on quite a bit of risk, right? And in exchange for that risk, we do ask for a 1-year commitment to be in the program. But it's significantly lower than getting a whole bunch of 3-year commitments on the RIs and savings plans. So, it just helps us, right? Because we need to have that internal marketplace to drive maximum savings. So that's that question. Let's see. Do we take over any management of the environment? So no, we do not take over management of the environment. We have services where we can do that for you. But when it comes to all of these cost-saving services, I think Jason mentioned earlier, it's all read-only access, right? We don't have the ability to actually do anything in your environment unless you want us to, right? Let's see. One more here. I missed it. I scrolled past it. Oh, do you have to buy services AWS through Mission to get IDP? The answer to that is yes, because again, we leverage our kind of reseller margin to give those savings directly back to you, right? Otherwise, we don't really have any mechanism, or we have mechanisms, but they're not very good mechanisms to guarantee you savings, right? All right. Any other questions from the group? You feel free to just unmute and yell at us. It's totally fine. I'm very much enjoying my cocktail. How's everybody else enjoying theirs?
Delicious.
Hey guys, this is Ken with Ross and Berzini. We have a pretty big, large spend in AWS today, and currently we use CloudHealth and a number of tools.
Wonderful.
but we have SHI as our reseller right now.
Got it.
And what would it look like? Or I mean, we have them trying to help us. I don't feel like we're getting the best value. Hopefully, there's no SHI guys on the call, but we're not getting the absolute best value that we could. But we're still under contract. So what does that look like? I'd still be interested in at least seeing what you guys, what options you guys have. And on the other side, I'm looking at some storage modifications and changing the way we do storage globally across the globe. And I mean, you guys have talked a lot about cost savings and making sure that you guys manage cost, and that's kind of in your wheelhouse. Are you guys also, you guys have some knowledge about the back end for sure. Would you guys be a resource to help with some of those storage issues as well? Or not issues, they're not issues as much as they are just looking at cheaper storage solutions. Right now we're using the SUNY based on historical needs and acquisitions, really. It's a very, very easy way for us to onboard with large acquisitions. And we go through a lot of them. I mean, I've just told the other day that, yeah, we're going to expect to do at least once a month, one a month here coming up. So, so storage is our concern, but I'm just looking right now. I'm just doing all the homework, but is that something you would be in your wheelhouse?
So that's great questions, Ken, and let's answer all three of those. So starting with sort of, you know, getting a high degree of value out of your reseller, right? And I won't speak to any specific resellers, but speaking broadly, resellers, you know, there's typically a thing called a VAR, right? And the VARs frequently sell things like printers and toner and paper and computers and, you know, things of that nature. We don't do any of that.
Don't forget red swing line staplers.
Oh yes, staplers.
Red.
You see my stapler? And the bottom line is we are, just like I would call us sort of a cloud native MSP, kind of an alternative to the old school managed service provider. We're also a cloud native consulting firm, which is as opposed to kind of your big five traditional kind of slow, you know, heavy bureaucratic consulting firms. We're very forward thinking, rapid, and agile. And similar on the cost services side, we are trying to drive as much value as possible. We don't just want, you know, to take your spend, give you 1 or 2% back, and call it a day, right? Ultimately, what we want to do is, because we have all these other services and we can help you all over the place, we want to become your partner. We want to build a long-term relationship with you. And that's part of why Cloud Foundation is a month-to-month service. But the other thing I'll note is, if you are under contract in a purely resale relationship with a vendor for AWS, the program that AWS has created that enables partners like Mission to actually be resellers has requirements that ensure you do not get locked into a reseller that you do not like. And I believe it even requires a month-to-month as the only commitment. Now, let's say I had a couple people on my team who used to work at other resellers, and they may be very, very, very applicable to your situation. We'd be happy to chat with you about what that looks like. So, so that's thing number one. Thing number two was around, remind me, was it around the back end?
Well, one of them was the storage,
right?
You know, and us dealing with the storage, SHI, and then it was just really, can you guys help us?
I had one more thing for you.
So
you mentioned,
I've only had two.
Yeah, well, I heard a third one in there, so I'm gonna go to the third one, and then I'll go to the last one for you. So the one that I heard that you maybe didn't know about is there are private pricing agreements that AWS has. Do you know if you're doing like an enterprise discount program or any sort of private pricing agreements on storage or CloudFront?
I do not, and I've been pushing SHI for those types of things. We did dig in and find that, you know, and they helped us do some of the onboarding. So most of the problems end up going back on their plate. So so I've run into the situation now where it's like, well, no, everything's fine. It's like, no, it's not.
It's not.
I just cut $4,000 out last month. Yeah. And you guys are telling me everything's fine. It's like, no, that's not fine.
So just so you know, and this is actually useful for everyone who's here. Once you reach a certain threshold of spend, AWS does have a program called the Enterprise Discount Program, which you can exchange, again, a commit for your overall spend over a period. The more you commit, the more your savings are, for a flat, fixed usually a high single digit or 2-digit kind of reduction in your cost, essentially a discount. Now, the challenge here is it's really, really difficult to understand what the correct commitment is. And when you're negotiating with AWS on this, I love AWS. They're a partner, and we are 100% focused on them, but they're not highly engaged with your workload, right? Where we are, right? We are. And so we negotiate on average 4 to 6 EDPs a month on behalf of our customers. And in addition to that, we also have blanket private pricing agreements that we can apply to your workload without you having to negotiate anything once you join into Cloud Foundation, right? And for example, we have a private pricing agreement on CloudFront, which can cut costs by about 40% on CloudFront. So if you're a heavy user of CloudFront, it's kind of a no-brainer.
And most of our spend is really in workspaces, which that's the toughie for us, and understanding the ebbs and flows of workspaces, because
totally fair.
We're just tagging things correctly and getting everything aligned.
Right.
So we're almost there. We've done a lot of work, but so that would be my question. Yeah, you guys could take over and still get value. It sounds like you can still get value out of what SHI has done.
Oh yeah,
even
of course.
To this point.
Of course, yeah. And look, we'd be delighted to have a chat. I think the answer to your last question around storage is yes, usually, but it does depend. So, for full clarity, while some other resellers are broad-based and focused across everything, so they're sort of shallow experience but broad across the market, we are single provider AWS, but very, very, very deep in our capabilities and skills. So if you're talking about storage that's on-prem, we probably won't be able to do much for you there. But we can certainly provide you recommendations. Great. So we're an awesome fit for you.
On-prem. I'd like to get rid of even the DCs in our offices.
Nice.
Our offices are pretty much firewalls, switches, and access points at this point.
Well, perfect. Yeah, we can absolutely help you with that. But for those of you who are curious about the other side, we're really focused on AWS. So I'll be clear about that. Great questions, though, Ken. You sparked like a good solid 7 or 8 minutes of good conversation there.
Yeah. I already filled out the form just to get input from you guys. So
thanks, Ken. We'll definitely reach out. Looking forward to that chat.
Great. Well, thanks. Great presentation.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We got one in the chat as well about.
Oh, good.
Here, I'll post it up. Now that I forgot that I can do this. Our team is small. How do I determine who on my team is best to evaluate if this is a tool we need and should we adopt?
Jason, why don't you take that one? If you
give it a stab. All right. So the answer to that is multiple people on your team should be involved in whether or not this is this is a tool you need, right? My opinion is I think everybody could benefit from this. But if you just have 1 or 2 people focusing on costs, you don't have the right people involved. You need to have multiple people within an organization involved. Our best relationships start with C-level executives who want to be involved, CFOs, controllers, whatever they might be, financial folks that really want to get involved in controlling that spend. And they can push that policy down and determine and push their teams to encourage them to bring their spend down. Those are the people that really need to get involved. And should you adopt? My opinion on that is, of course you should, because we can help. You're basically getting services from some experts at no cost. Do you have to follow our advice? No, not going to force you to. You're going to hurt my feelings, maybe a little bit. But we would really love to see you, not spend as much. AWS is a great company. They are an awesome company to work with. They're an awesome partner. But I don't, personally, and I think Mission follows the same mentality. I don't want to see you spend money frivolously with AWS for no particular reason. So if you can adopt and you can help and get the opinion and advice of an expert on a regular basis, I see no downside to doing something like that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, I think a great place to get started is IDP, right? Because again, it is month to month. You're under no obligation, right? And it's a great place to just try it out, get access to CloudHealth, take a look at it, start talking with our cloud analysts. My expectation is fully that you'll stick with it and love it, right? But if you don't, there's no risk, right? It literally has no cost. So at a minimum, you'll save 5% for your first month, right? And I did get one more question that just came in direct. So the question was, at what minimum level per month in AWS spend does it make sense to consider mission? And so I would say the answer is sort of nuanced, right? It depends on what you're talking about. So if you're talking purely about the cost savings programs, I think it's partially about your baseline, and it's also about your growth. So Mission works with customers kind of from SMB, startup, all the way up to enterprise, right? And the people who are on these programs vary in spend from, as low as $8,000 to $10,000 a month up to, let's say a heck of a lot more than that, 6-7 figures a month type spenders. And I think that anywhere in that spectrum, you can get value out of the savings. IDP, we may not be able to give you 5%, kind of depending on how much workload you actually have in AWS environment. But if you're growing quickly, the sooner you can get those kind of guardrails in place, and the governance and the tools and the processes, you're going to get benefit and value, right? And so I will say, if you're spending like $500 a month or $1,000 a month, or even probably $2,500 a month, the odds of you really getting much value right away are low. But if you are spending that much a month and you're like, I am anticipating exploding in the next 6, do it now, right? The sooner you do it, the better. So we're not gonna reject you, but your savings will be maximized in kind of those situations. The other thing I'll say is, regardless of how much you're spending, on outside the cost savings kind of initiatives and programs that we have, I mentioned, we have support programs. We have, a managed DevOps service where we can kind of sprint along with your team, and you can have this expert trusted advisor. And we have the kind of monitoring, 24/7 monitoring support services and management services. All of these things are hugely valuable if you have a small team. So maybe you have a small team and a small spend now, but again, you're anticipating growing, and you really want to focus on your core competency, which is delighting your customer, listening to them, and creating huge value for them, right? Because that'll create huge value for you. And AWS has this term, which I absolutely love. They say, we want to take all of the undifferentiated heavy lifting away from you, right? So that's why they provide services like RDS. If you are a SaaS startup or a SaaS business that is providing, maybe you're in the healthcare space, or maybe you're in e-commerce, your expertise, your core competency probably isn't running a Kubernetes cluster, right? So don't do that. Outsource that to AWS, right? And similarly, if you got a small team, you can use us as a resource to help empower that small team to not work on the undifferentiated heavy lifting. Let us do that for you. It's more cost effective. You get access to a broader set of skills. For the cost of a single DevOps engineer, right? You can sign up for a mission service where you get access to a whole fleet of DevOps team members who all have different expertise and across a huge number of technologies and services within AWS. So it's kind of a powerhouse there. So I would say it depends on the service, it depends on your growth, it depends on the acceleration, a lot more than it depends necessarily on how much you're spending. Jason, Jason, you have anything to add to that, or did I?
No, that was exactly what I was going to say. We are the team of experts that can help you. Awesome. And you get the skill set of not one but many.
Yes, I would drop the mic, but it's in a nice little holder here. Okay, folks, any more questions? All right. Well, let's wrap up then. So first off, thank you so much to everyone for joining. Thank you for Jason for being incredibly awesome at your job and for showing us all about CloudHealth. And thank you to Mariah and John, our wonderful partners. And thanks to each of you. And please do reach out. Use that form, missioncloud.com/IDP. Email me at jonathan@missioncloud.com. Blow up my inbox. I'm happy to answer questions, no fee, no cost, or anything like that. If you just are curious or have questions about anything, happy to help. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks, Mark, you guys.
Thanks all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very thorough. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.